Good morning. I was baking some biscuits the other night for our dinner, and my son Mark was helping me. And he looked at the flour and he said, "What does that taste like? Does it taste good?" And I said, "Oh, no, honey, you don't want to taste that. That's really gross. But when you mix it all together with all these other things, then it makes really good biscuits." This incident brought to my mind Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. And specifically the phrase work together for good. To me, this verse means that not everything in our life is good in and of itself, but when you put it all together, it becomes good. Let me try to illustrate what I mean by that. I love baking, and probably one of the first things people think of when baking is the classic chocolate chip cookie. There's something so satisfying about pulling those hot chocolate chip cookies out of the oven and getting out a glass of cold milk and enjoying the pure delight of sinking your teeth into a freshly baked cookie. They are so delicious. However, have you ever thought of the ingredients that you put into those cookies? Would you ever take a big bite out of a stick of butter? Would you drink a few teaspoons of vanilla or eat a raw egg? Ugh, no way, that's nasty, you might be thinking. The ingredients to chocolate chip cookies may not be good by themselves, but when you work them together, they become something good. In comparison, the individual ingredients that make up our life may not be something we like at the time, but when God works it all together, He makes something good of it. It becomes something great. The first ingredient you start with when baking chocolate chip cookies is butter. It has to be softened so that it will mix well with the other ingredients. When I think of butter, I think of something soft and smooth. In our life, we will have some smooth times, those times when everything's going well. No bumps in the road, pre-COVID days. Butter represents the smooth days in our lives. The next ingredient we have is the sugar. Sugar represents the sweet times in our life, those really great times, maybe a Valentine's Day date or flowers sent from someone that you love, maybe a family night spent together. We will have sweet days sprinkled throughout our life. Next, we crack and mix in the eggs. The eggs, because of their shell, represent the hard times, the gooey messes sometimes life can bring. Have you ever tried to clean up an egg that fell and broke on the floor? It's not easy to clean up. These hard times that can make a mess of your life can be maybe a messy divorce, fighting between family members, a church split, maybe two really close friends who are not getting along and thus they want you to choose between them. Those are some hard times. They can get messy. We will have hard times like that in our life. Next, we pour in a few teaspoons of vanilla. Have you ever tasted vanilla? I have. One time when I was young, I was baking and was putting in a teaspoon of vanilla and it smelled so good. And something that smells so good has got to taste good, right? So I decided to lick the teaspoon. Oh, yuck. That stuff is so bitter. It is nasty by itself. Vanilla will represent the bitter times in life. If we are not careful, we can become bitter at things that happen to us. The Bible says that bitterness can ruin our life. Looking diligently lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. Hebrews 12:15. Bitterness can destroy you. We will have bitter times in our life. A spouse who was unfaithful, a man of God who messed up and maybe disappointed you, maybe feeling that you didn't get recognition you deserved and somebody else did. Things like that, if we allow them to bother us continually, can lead to bitterness in our life. Your life every day will taste like a big old swig of vanilla. Nasty, bitter. You don't want to taste that. The Bible's solution to dealing with thoughts of bitterness is to forgive. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. Ephesians 4:31-32. Next, while baking chocolate chip cookies, we must add in the flour. Flour in and of itself is very bland. So the flour will represent the bland days in our life. The days where you feel like you're just spinning your wheels and not going anywhere. Maybe you feel you are in a rut. You feel you haven't had any direction from God. He hasn't spoken to your heart. And you feel that each day is exactly the same. Get up, eat, work, watch TV, go to bed, repeat. Life sometimes can get bland. I think one time in my life when I felt like this is when I had several little babies. It seems all that you do is feed them, change them, and never sleep. You're so tired, you kind of stumble through those days in a fog and you don't even remember what day of the week it is. These days sometimes will seem like they're the same over and over and they're never going to end, but they will. And the end result of those bland days are your beautiful children. Next, we add in the baking soda. That baking soda has a tough job. That little tiny amount that you add into your cookies has to get that whole batch of cookies to puff up nicely. That's a challenge. Baking soda will represent the challenging days of our life. Those uphill mountain climbs are not easy. Rising to the top of a mountain takes a lot of effort, and it is a challenge. You will face challenges in your life. Some things you'd rather not deal with, but they are there, and you have to face them. In the day of prosperity, be joyful. But in the day of adversity, consider. God also hath set the one over against the other. Ecclesiastes 7:14. God allows those hard times to come into our lives. We can learn from them if we are willing to endure through them. We also need to add in some salt at this point. Without salt, our cookies would not have much flavor. I think of salt as the different types of people we deal with in our life. Every person is unique and brings their own flavor to your life. Without them, your life just wouldn't taste the same. Some people like to add in nuts at this point. We will let the nuts represent the fun times in life. Those days you look back on and a smile comes to your face. Maybe it was a family vacation or a church Christmas party. Maybe your annual 4th of July parade or a barbecue. Those are the fun times in life. We wish all days could be like that. But chocolate chip cookies wouldn't be any good if the only ingredient was nuts. Lastly, and we always save the best for last, we fold in those chocolate chips. We will let the chocolate chips represent the special times. I think if you baked your cookies before you added in the chocolate chips, they would still turn out okay, but there wouldn't be anything special about them. It's those melty, gooey chocolate chips that make those cookies so special. You will have days in your life that will forever be ingrained in your mind. You will be able to remember vividly every detail. These are the really special times. The day you got saved, your baptism, maybe the day you met your spouse. How about your engagement day or a wedding day, a family cruise, a special gift, maybe the birth of your children? These are the special times. And we know that all things work together for good. I don't think that any of us would like to live a life filled with just bitterness and challenges. I get a picture of all those ingredients, the smooth days, the sweet times, the hard times, the gooey messes, the bitter events, the bland, stuck in a rut days, the challenges we face, the people we face them with, and the special times in our life being put into a bowl in the hands of our master chef. God lovingly takes his hand and he creates something beautiful from all those ingredients. He can take the bitter days and turn them into something good. He can take those gooey messes we make out of our life and he can turn out the most amazing creation you could imagine. Don't resent the hard times. They will work out to make something delicious. Just like a baker can take individual ingredients that aren't necessarily any good on their own and put them together to make something delicious, so God can take the individual ingredients in our life and create something beautiful. He can take your life, every single part of it, every ingredient, and make it into something amazing. If you love him, you can be assured that God, our master chef, will work all things together for good.